Hi there, my name is Albert and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to build an AI-powered language translation application called LinguaSpeak. This is an AI-powered application which accepts a source language and translates it into a target language. For example, we can type here, "Hello world." And the AI is going to translate "Hello World" into any preferred language of our choice. In this case, we have Spanish. We can change it to French, or we can change it to German. And there is more. You can also play out loud the translated language.
Bonjour le monde.
You also have the ability to copy the translated language or star it and add it to your favorite. You can also upload a file to be translated into any preferred language of your choice. It is also responsive on desktop, tablet, and mobile view as well. Without further ado, let's get started. This is Visual Studio Code, a code editor for writing programs or applications. I will assume that you have already created a folder in which we are going to type in every single code that we will be using for this particular project. If you haven't done that already, go ahead and create a folder. The name of the folder I created was LinguaSpeak, and we are going to install Tailwind CSS and Next.js. To install that, let's head over to the official website of Tailwind CSS. This is the website for Tailwind CSS, and when you navigate into the document, guides, and Next.js, this link will be placed in the description. You will find a step-by-step guide to install your Tailwind CSS with Next.js. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to go ahead and copy this exact code here and paste it into our Visual Studio Code terminal. Copy it and paste it over here. Now, before we hit enter, let's take note of a very few things. There is this name here called my project. This is going to be the folder, or whatever this will be called, to contain every single code of yours. I already have a folder here, so I'm just going to get rid of this my project name here and type in dot or period. Typing in period is going to install the Next.js and Tailwind CSS inside my root directory, which is the LinguaSpeak folder that I created. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Now we are supposed to answer a few questions. The first is, would you like to use Tailwind CSS? And the answer is yes, because that is the main reason why we went ahead onto the Tailwind official website to copy the code over there. So let's hit enter for yes. And we would also like to use the src directory, yes, app router, yes, customize the default import alias, yes. I will explain that later on in the video. And we are also going to hit on enter and give ourselves some few minutes to get this installed. Alright, Next.js and Tailwind CSS have been installed successfully. So we can go ahead and start with our project. There are a few things that we have to notice here. We have the package.json here. We have a Tailwind config.typescript. We get this by using this command, the one that we copied earlier. It gives us the Tailwind right in the box. When we open the package.json file, we have the script object, which contains def, build, start, and length. The def script is used to run the application in development mode, and the build is also used to run the application in production mode. So since we are building the application from scratch, we are going to use the dev script. To run the dev script, you can type yarn run dev or npm run dev based on what you are using. So I'll just go ahead and type yarn run dev. Now let's get back to our browser and type in http localhost port 3000. This is where our application is running. So open our browser, click on the new tab and type localhost port 3000. And voila, we have our boilerplate code. This doesn't even look close to the production application. There is vast difference, and we have to get rid of this boilerplate code and type everything or write every code from scratch to make it look exactly like the one in production. So to edit this page, we will get back to our code editor. Let's minimize this terminal window and navigate to the source directory and click on page.typescript. This is the boilerplate code for the Next.js application. So we are going to get rid of everything and create a div. Alright. Now there are a few things that we have to notice. When we check this production code, we have this dotted background here with a little bit of gradient of a black overlay, and we have all the elements on top of it. So we are going to first work on this dotted background and then place everything on top of it. To create a dotted background, we are going to use this beautiful Tailwind component website called Uncertainty UI. When you visit this website and navigate to the component and click on Grade and Dot Backgrounds, it takes you to this page. The link for this website will be placed in the description. We have Grade and Dot Backgrounds, and we have other texture. So we have the dot background, and this is what we are interested in. So we are going to install this package here. When we follow this installation procedure, we will be able to come up with our own dotted background. So first, let's install the mini SVG data URI. We are not going to use any of these, so let's focus on this one. Get back to the code editor and type yarn add, then paste in the name of the package and hit enter. Alright, so we have the package installed. So let's get back to the website page and read the further installation procedure. We are not going to add this, and we are just going to jump to this page or this section, the tailwind.config.typescript. Over here, we are going to copy this starting from the const svg to data URI all the way up to the flatten color palette. Copy everything, get back to our code and paste it inside the tailwind config.typescript. So we will paste it over here. Great. Now let's move on to the website again to read further instructions. When we scroll down, we see the plugin section of the tailwind config.js or TypeScript, and it have a function which accepts match utilities and theme. So we are going to copy everything here, starting from the functions all the way down up to this side, copy everything, get back to our code and paste it right inside the plugin. Alright, so let's get back to the localhost port 3000 and see what is changing on our website. When we get back to localhost port 3000, there is absolutely nothing that has changed, and this makes sense because we haven't added anything to the application yet. Before we leave this tailwind.config.typescript, I want us to do one more thing. Let's get back to our browser and navigate towards this website. Once again, the link of this site will be placed in the description. So we are going to install this library called Preline UI. This is a beautiful Tailwind CSS library which contains most of the components that we'll be using to build this application. The reason why we are using this library is because it makes the development process faster. You don't have to reinvent the wheel anytime that you are building a particular website. There are some components which has been built by Preline UI. You just have to copy them, paste them, and modify. So let's copy this here, npI Preline, which is going to get Preline installed. So I am using yarn, so I'll just type in yarn add Preline, and it's going to get it installed for me. Alright, so for yarn to work, we have to add this to the content array. So we copy this and add it to the content array. This is going to make sure the Preline works on every page. And we move back to the plugin page, plugin array, and paste in this line here. Alright, that is not all. There is one more thing that we have to do. When we navigate into the src directory, we have a layout.tsx. In this page, we are going to paste this link here. So let's get back to the Preline website and click on Get Started. Scroll down, and we can see this script file here. So we are going to copy this script and paste it over here and hit save. Alright, now it's time to write some code. Let's move back to this website, Uncertainty UI. So upon adding the function and importing the name or the package on top here, it's time to add the dotted background. So when we click on code, it gives us the code to add this dotted background. So you're going to copy everything here and paste it inside this return. Get rid of the comment and hit on save. Now let's go back to the URL, which is localhost port 3000, and see if there is any changes. And there we go, we have a change. So there is this background text right in the middle of the code. Obviously, this isn't part of the production code, so we are going to get rid of this and then add in the real code. Alright, so let's get rid of this paragraph. So we are going to create 3 divs, and these divs are going to play a crucial role in this code. So let's just go ahead and type these divs, and then I will explain them along the way. So we create this div, which is going to have a class name of relative, overflow of hidden, and give the height screen, a height of screen. And inside that div, we are going to create another div and give it a class name of mass width. So we want the entire width of this website to be 85 rem, 85 rem. And we want to place everything right in the center. So we are going to type in ms auto and give it a px of 4. So the padding on the x-axis is going to have 4. And we have, on a small screen, we want the padding to be 6. And we have py, which is the space on the y-axis. You're going to give it 10. And on the small screen, you want to give the py 24 pixels. Alright, so let's create the last div inside this div. Give it a class name of test center. So now we are good to go. We will start building everything from the ground up. So firstly, let's start by creating this test here, LinguaSpeak, and the sub test over here. So when we get back to the code, we create a header which is going to be h1, and inside the header we will start by creating the first test, which is lingua, and then we create the second test, which is speak. Now notice we have two colors for lingua and speak. When we check what we created, we just have LinguaSpeak with the same colors. So let's give the header a general class. So we are going to create a class name and then give it a text of 4L, 4 extra large. Now let's go ahead and save it, and now we see we have a large text over here. We are not done yet. So the font size and SM, which is the responsiveness, text of 6XL, and then we add the font of bold class to make the font bold, and then we add a text of neutral of 200 and hit save. Now we have this looking similar to this, but there is a difference between this and what we have here. The color of the speak is different from what we have here. So we are going to create a span around the speak. We're going to create a span around the speak. So you're going to put the speak inside the span and style this differently. So we have the class name of tests, and the color code is going to be F87315, and then hit the square bracket. Now this is going to change the color of the speak to look exactly like what we have over here. Right away we can see things are starting to take shape. So let's create the subtext here. Beneath the header, we create a paragraph and we type in LinguaSpeak. You bring a column, bridging, voices, connecting words. I'm going to give this a class name of margin top. So you're going to make the margin top of 3 and the text is going to be neutral 400. We go back and yes, we have this right here. Next, we are going to work on the text area, which have the source language and the target language. So to do that, we create a div. Alright, we create a div. So we are going to create this div here. Right beneath the paragraph, we have this div. Let's give this div a class of margin top of 7, SM empty 12, mx auto, max width of 3SL, and relative. And within this class or div, you're going to have another div with a class name of grid, a gap of 4, an MD of grade calls 4, and grade calls 1. Alright, so we have this grid here of columns 4 empty columns 2, and then 1. So on a large screen, we have the text area or the text input aligned next to each other. So we have this on the left hand side and this on the right hand side. So this is a 2 grid, and when we start squeezing it into the mobile view, we can notice, or we can see, we have just 1 grid. They are on top of each other. That is what we just wrote in the div. So having that implemented, we can go ahead and create the text area. The text area is also going to contain or have a div. And before we create the text area, so the text areas are also going to be placed in a div. So let's create that div right away. So div and a class name of relative z of 10 flex column space x, a border, a rounded of large, shadow of large, a background of neutral 900, a border of neutral 700, a shadow gray of 900 divided by 20. I will explain everything as we move ahead with the code. So we have the div that is going to contain the text area. Now what we just did was to create, we have a container containing the actual text area. So when we check on the production website, we have this hello world. Inside this container with the border and the shadow, we have a text area within. So what we just created here is this, border or the parent div to contain the text area. In this application, we want to apply the right programming principles to make the code more efficient and then more scalable. In doing so, we have to break everything down into components to make the application easy to understand and also easy to scale. Instead of we typing in a text area here, we are going to create a component, right? We are going to create a component that is going to have the text area. So inside the source and app directory, I want us to create a new folder inside the source directory. A new folder called components. And another folder called hooks, which I will explain later on. And finally, a folder called utils. So inside the components, we are going to create a folder called input. A new folder called inputs. And inside the inputs, we are going to create a file called TextArea.jsx. We are going to create another folder inside the component folder named buttons. And we are going to have a final folder named speech recognition, which I will explain what that will be used for in a second. So we have speech recognition. All right. Inside of this TextArea component, we are going to create a functional component so we start doing that by importing React from React, and then we create a constant of TextArea and we export default TextArea. Now this TextArea is going to accept a couple of things. Firstly, we have the ID. Second, we have the value, and we have the onChange function, which is going to listen when there is a change in the TextArea input field. And then finally we have the placeholder. So we create the TextArea element and give it a row of 5, ID of ID, a class name of py, which is going to be the padding in between the TextArea on the y-axis, 2.5, and we have px4, border of none, focus, outline, none. We're going to display it in the block, a width of full, a border of transparent, rounded large, and we have a dark background of neutral 900 and a dark border of transparent, and we have a dark of text neutral 400, and we have a placeholder. So we create a placeholder of placeholder, and then we have a value of value, and then the onChange function is going to be onChange. So that being created, it means the TextArea is now a component which can be used wherever you want to use in the code. So let's get back to the page.ts file, and we are going to import the TextArea. All right, so let's move top here, import TextArea from at component input TextArea, and we have TextArea over here, TextArea. So this function accepts a couple of parameters. So we have the ID, the value, onChange, placeholder. To make this work, we have to pass in all these values. So we have the ID of source language, and we have a value of source text, and we are going to create an onChange function which is going to have the event. The event is going to be a change event which have the HTML TextArea element, HTML TextArea element, and give it a fat arrow and set our source text to be the event.target.value. I think there is an error somewhere. Alright, so the reason why we are facing this error is because we haven't created the set source state yet, and we haven't defined the change or imported the change event element from React. let's move right to the top and import React, and we have useState, which is going to hold the state of the variables that we are going to create, and then we pass in the change event. From React. Alright, we are still facing a couple of errors. So there is nothing like source test inside the application. So we have to create that with useState. So const source test, set source test, and we have the use effect over here. And then finally we add the placeholder of targeted source language. Alright, so let's move ahead, save this code, get back to our production. Let's save this code and get back to localhost port 3000 and see what is going on over there. Alright, failed to compile. So we are using a client-side component here, which is the useState, and this is only available in the client side and not on the server side. This is Next.js and is trying to render some of the client side, states into the inside the server side of Next.js, and there is nothing like useState on the server side. So we have to explicitly indicate that this code is for the client. To do that, we just type use client on top here and save it, get back and refresh, and there we go. So we have our source language. Now things are starting to take shape. So next we are going to create these icons and then move on to the next test area. So right after this div here, right after the test area component, we are going to create a div with a class name flex or flex row, justify between, a width of full, and then we create a span element, with the class name cursor pointer. We have flex space x of 2 and flex of row. Alright, so within this span we are going to create a couple of icons. So the first span is going to contain these icons, the microphone, volume, the attachment, and the link is going to contain these links, and the other span is going to have this count to count the number of tests that we have in the input area or test area. So we are going to first create the speech recognition components, which is going to read the audio directly from the microphone of the computer or any device we are using and translate it into a text back into the source language, and back into the source language for it to be converted into the targeted language. To do that, we will create a component inside the speech recognition folder named speech recognition.jsx. Inside here we are going to import React and use effect. We are also going to import speech recognition from speech recognition. So we don't have this package yet, so we would have to install it first. Yarn add React speech recognition. This is a package that is going to accept the audio source from the microphone and convert it into a text. And then we have React speech recognition. We import the use speech recognition. Alright, next we are going to import the microphone icon, this icon right here. And before we import the microphone icon, we would have to install the package for these icons. So we have this package called Kapla.io, which is now my favorite icon package for any application that I build. It contains thousands of icons that can represent any idea that comes into mind. You just have to search microphone and then you click on this to know the icon name and import it directly into React application. So let's go ahead and install this. So to install this, we open a new tab and search for Tabla.io React npm, which is going to give us the npm package to install this icon package. Copy this, get back to my code and run yarn add Tabla.io. So the tablet icons has been installed. We can move or go ahead and install the microphone icon. So we have import from at Tabla icons React, and then we have icon microphone. Oh, all right. We can create a const or a function for the speech recognition component. And this is going to accept a set source test of the child component wherever we are calling this speech recognition component. And we do a couple of things here. We distract the transcript listening from the use speech recognition, and we have a use effect. We have a use effect which is going to have this code, the set source test, into the transcript. We pass in the transcript to set the source test, and the dependent of this use effect are the transcript. So anytime the transcript changes, we want to set the source test all over again. And when we have a new source test, we also want to trigger this use effect function. Then we have a const of handling voice recording. And we have if listening, that is if there is a listening, or if we have a proof that the website is supposed to listen to external audio input. You go ahead and use the speech recognition dot stop listening. which is going to stop the recording. Else, if we are not listening, it means we want to start, right? So we create the start recording as well using the speech recognition. Now we have the handling voice recording function ready. It's time to return the actual component. So we have a div and we have an icon microphone, of size 22, a class name test gray 400, and we have on click is going to have the handling voice recording function, and finally we export default speech recognition component. So the first thing we are going to do is to import the speech recognition component, component, which accepts the set source test is going to be set source test. Now we would have to move ahead to the top of the code and import the speech recognition component. So we can do that right beneath the test area. So import speech recognition component from component speech recognition and speech recognition. So let's move ahead to localhost port 3000 and see what is going on. Alright, so we have this error, regenerator runtime is not identified. Upon the research I did, for some weird reason, the speech recognition component doesn't work well with Next.js. So the trick or the hack was just to add this component. Import, I'll paste it right beneath the use client. Import regeneration runtime. So this is going to do the magic and get rid of this error. And there we go. So we have the microphone icon here. Let's move on to the next icons. So we have the volume icons. So icon, volume. From the tabular icons that we installed, which is also going to have a size of 22, and then an on-click function to handle audio playback. So handle audio playback, we pass in the source test. This handle audio playback function is going to be created in some few seconds. So let's move on and create the other two additional icons. So we have file upload, icon file upload, and then I think we should create a component for the file upload. Yes, let's create a component for the file upload. So let me write a comment here to know that we are going to have a file upload component here, and quickly create the handle audio playback function. So we create the function here. and the audio playback, and you're going to create a const. If you're wondering how I am able to get these code suggestions that makes creating the functions easier and faster, well, there is this VS Code extension called Codium. So we can move ahead to extensions and search for Codium. So you can move to extensions and search for Codium. Let me just get the spelling correct. Yes, Codium. And this is free. It is like the alternative to GitHub Copilot. So once you have this installed, you'll be able to get auto suggestions like this, and once you hit on tab, you'll be able to complete the code quickly and then faster. Alright, so let's create a constant called utterance, which is just going to be the new speech synthesis utterance. This is an embedded object in the web API or in JavaScript that copy or that accept a text and convert it into a speech. So we have tests and window.speech synthesis.speak utterance. So let's see if we can test just that. So we can type in here, hi, my name is John Doe.
Hi, my name is John Doe.
And yes, it is working. Just simple as that. Alright, so let's move ahead and create the component for the file upload and also the link paste. The file upload and link paste. So we move ahead into the input and create a new file called file upload.jsx. Create a new file called link paste.jsx, and let's create this file called language selector.jsx. So if you're wondering what this language selector component is going to do, when we check the production code, we have this drop down here, which is a component. So that is what we are going to create over here. And I think it's time to create every single component that we would ever need in this application and move to page.ts and write everything all together. So before we code the file upload, let's create this component called category links.tsx. The category links is going to hold these links: the business, education, creative, health, and the rest. And finally, let's create this file inside the component called svg decorators or decorations, which is going to be tsx. So let's rename this svg. I made a typo mistake, so svg decorations, and yeah, we are good to go. So before we move to the hooks and utils component, let's create the respective code for all the components that we have created. So for buttons, we are going to create a new file called icon button, and it's just going to be a simple component: import React from React, and we have const icon button, which is going to accept two parameters, which is the icon and on click. So we have icon and on click. This is supposed to be this, and move this in between the circle, and get rid of this, return export default icon button. And inside this icon button, we are going to have a span element, and the span element is going to have a class name of cursor pointer flex item center space x2, and an on click function. We have the on click, and in between the span, this is supposed to be here, and in between the span we have the icon. Of size 22. All right. Let's move to the import and create the file upload. So we have import React, and we are going to import the paperclip icon. So we have icon paperclip, which is this icon over here. Create a const file upload, and we have the handle file upload. We create a label. The label is having an HTML4 file upload, and a class name of cursor pointer, and we have our icon paperclip of size 21. Input so we have an input ID of file upload, the type of file, accept. Let's get rid of this because we will be accepting images and then documents. Maintain the unchanged and the class name of hidden. All right, so this is looking great. Let's move on to language selector. Here we are going to import React and import icon language. So this component is going to be responsible for this right here. Then we create a const of language selector. And we have all these parameters: selected language, set selected language, and languages. Get rid of everything here. Export default language selector. and we have a span. When you check the language selector component, we have this icon, the select, and then this drop down here. So we are going to first create the language icon. Let's give a class name of cursor pointer, a rounded of full to create this spell effect, space X of 1, padding left 2, give it a background color of black, a flex item center, and give it a flex of row. We create our icon language, give it a size of 20, and right after the icon language we are going to create the select option or the select menu, and using the autocomplete by the Codium extension I am able to generate this on the fly. So what I'll be doing here is to go through and check if everything is correct. So we have the value, select language, on change E, yes, everything is on point. We have to add a couple of class, a background of black, flex row, rounded full, py1, and a text of white. The language is the map. Okay, you are mapping through all the languages that we are going to accept from the child component that's going to call this component. And we have the key language and the value language. I think this is looking great. That is all we wanted to create in this component. Let's work on link paste. We import React and import icon link. We create a constant link paste, which is going to accept, let's get rid of everything here and replace it with this, which is going to accept a handle link paste function, and we give it a label for link input and a class name. The main reason why I created this link paste component was the ability for the user to click on this link and there will be a pop-up or a modal which accepts a link from any website at all, and the algorithm or the function will transcribe every text from the website, from the home page of that website, and translate it into any targeted language of the user's choice. But I think I would have to leave that as an assignment or maybe a further improvement code for you guys to try later on. I think I will just make it a try on part or feature of this application. So label and class name pointer. We create the icon link of size 21. And we have the input of type text, ID of link input, class name of hidden, and on change function of the handle link paste. Finally, export default link paste. We already have the test area we have the speech recognition left with the category links. So let's go ahead and create that as well. So the category links component is going to be a very simple component which is going to be reusable, meaning we can adjust the number of links that we want to add and it's just going to work right away. Import React and we import all these icons. So I will be copying all the icons that will be required for this component. And copy the categories as well. Copy the categories. And finally, create the whole component as well. So we have a const of category links, right? Links, and we have react.fc we are going to return a div. We are going to return a div. FC is caps, not lowercase, and this div will have a class name mt10 sm mt20, and we are going to loop through all the categories. So categories.map, and we have the auto completion here. So I'll just look through this code and see if they align with whatever thing that I wanted to create here. So we have this is supposed to be a link. Okay, whatever, a div or a link is going to work. Let's just keep it as a div. And we have a key. The key is going to be the label. So we can distract all these from the categories. We can distract the icon as icon and then the label. So instead, you're just going to clean everything here and pass label. Class name is going to be a little bit lengthy because there are a couple of classes that we would want to add. So we have a margin of 1, we have a py of 2, px 3, inline, flex, item center, gap s is going to be 2, text sm, font medium, rounded large. And if you are wondering how I am able to come up with all these numbers, do I guess and go back and check to see if they are correct, or what method am I using to know that py2 is going to be the perfect size for this component? This is done through experimentation. So whilst I was building this application, I tested a lot of paddings, and 2 and 3 or any number that we see here seems to work pretty fine. So it's up to you to start cleaning all the classes and building them one by one to get and understand what each of the classes are doing in the code. That way you get to understand why we use each of the classes and also get to understand Tailwind CSS better. We have rounded large, we have a border and a border of gray, 200, background of white, a text gray of 800, shadow small, a hover of background gray 50, disabled opacity of 50, disabled, a pointer event of none, and we have a background of neutral 900, a background of neutral 900, and a text of white. We are going to change this into icon and change this into a label and export default category links. All right. Let's move on to so we move to SVG decorations. These are the decorations that we have here. This arc here, which looks like a hand drawing, and then we also have this wavy kind of look of a color blue also here. So these are the decorators we are talking about, and I am just going to copy that and paste it over here. So a hook is a function that allows components to have access to state and other React features. In our case, we have a hook which is responsible for picking text from a source language, passing it into the Openai API, process it, and turning back into the targeted component or targeted language. To do this, we need a hook which can have access to all the states and React features in wherever chat components that we are calling it. So let's quickly create the hook named useTranslate. .jsx. Before we can use this hook, we would have to install Openai package. So we do yarn add Openai. This is the package that is going to help us pass in the source language, process it into the target language. So we create or import use effect, and use state from React, and we are going to import Openai from Openai. Now we would need an API key to be able to run this code. To get your API key, you can do that by visiting the Openai platform. So once you visit the platform page, you scroll down to API keys, where you can generate your own key and use it in whatever application that you want to use. The key here is a secret and shouldn't be shared to anyone. It's supposed to be used by you and you alone, because every usage of this key is going to cost a penny. So you might lose money by being generous for sharing your secret key. That being said, I'm not going to use my key or display my key in this code, but I want you guys to visit the platform openai.com visit the API keys, generate your own key, and get back to the code. So we are going to create a .m file, which is going to contain the next public API key, and then you paste in your Openai key over here. So we create a const Openai equals new Openai. We initialize the Openai class, which accepts the API key, process.env.openai key, and then we pass this method as well. So we are going to have a comma here and pass in this dangerously allow browsers to be true. Omitting this some way somehow doesn't get the code working, so it is important you add this. Now to create our hook, we create a const useTranslate, which is going to accept the source text and the selected language. Selected language. So we have a const, we have the targeted language, we have the target text and set target text equals useState. So we create a useState to store the target text. Next, we create a use effect. This use effect function is going to hold all the logic to translate a source language into a target language. So we create a constant called handle translate, which sounds exactly as what it's going to be used for. So we have async, which accepts the source text obviously, and what we are going to do here is to create a try-catch block. So a try-catch block is going to catch any error if we fail to achieve a promise here, or if you fail to pass over here. So the try is like, okay, I want you to try running this code, and if you are successful, that's all right, but if you're not successful, catch whatever error that may happen in the try block. And we are also, and inside the try we are having a const of response await Openai .chat.completion.create. So this chat.completion.create is the Openai function that is going to help us choose the model and also the message content, which is popularly known as prompt. So we first select a model. We are going to select GPT-4, which is the current advanced model from Openai. And the next argument is messages, which is an array of objects. So we have row. The row is going to be a user, and the content is going to be our prompt. Now, this is how we are going to write our prompt. So we start by typing. You will be provided with a sentence, and we tell ChatGPT which sentence it is. So the sentence we bring in this column, which is going to be the source text, and we add your task are to 1. Detect what language the sentence is in, and then 2. Translate the sentence into the selected language. So we don't want the ChatGPT to generate any other information other than the translated sentence. So we add this: do not return anything other than the translated sentence. All right. So we create a constant to store the results. So we have data is going to be response.choices. This is the convention response.choices. This is the convention for accessing the message content. So with choices accepts the first element in the array.message.content. And we're going to go ahead and set the target text, this state we created here, into whatever we had from Openai API. And the catch is going to console log every error that may occur for debugging purposes. So error translating text error. We are not done yet. So the final thing we are going to do is that is right after the catch block, we are going to write this logic here. If the source.text, we want to trim any excess white spaces. If this is true, we want to create a timeout ID. I will explain in a second why we are doing this. And then we have a handle translate function, which is going to accept the source text, and then we pass in 500 milliseconds. We are going to return with a clear timeout with a timeout ID. And the dependency of the use state is going to trigger when there is a source text, which is 1, and also when there is a selected language. And finally, we can return the targeted text and type export default use translate. The handle translate function is triggered every 500 milliseconds as soon as the user types any word. So when I type in any text, for example, hello world, it waits for 500 milliseconds and it triggers the handle translate function. This is what I mean. So for example, hi, in 5 milliseconds, this is going to be translated into French. That is what I'm talking about. So we have that in place. Let's create our last function outside the page.tsx, which is going to be the utils, and the utils is going to be rtf to test. We are creating this function to handle a rich text format correctly. So I am going to copy the code and paste it over here. And we are good to go. Let's get back to localhost and see if we have break anything. And upon refresh, I think everything is good to go. I think everything is good. So let's get back to the page.tsx. So we are going to import the file component we created. So we have file upload, which is a component, and have the handle file upload of the handle file upload. We are going to create this in a second. So before we create this function, let's move ahead at the top and import the file upload component. We will do that over here. Import file upload from @component input file upload, and we are going to create the function for handling file upload. Alright, so we have the function here. By the help of Codium autocomplete, we have the file upload, which accepts an event, the change event of an HTML input element, and the file is located at the target.files at the first index. And we have if file. We are going to read this new file, and upon reload, we are going to create a constant rtf content reader dot result as string. This reader dot result as string, it's coming from this reader object, and we have a constant of text equals rtf to text. We pass the rtf content as a parameter, and we set the source text to test. So you would have to import the rtf to test as well. So we have import rtf to test from utils, rtf to test. Handle file upload. All right, so we are good to go. Let's keep on building. And the last icon on the source language, I think, is the paper link. Sorry, the link icon. So we copy the component, paste it, and import it at top here. Import link, paste from component, link paste from component, and create this function link paste. So we are going to do that here. We have handle link paste. So as I mentioned earlier on, I am not going to implement this function. It should be a test or a practice functionality to this project to you guys. So I'm not going to implement the handle link paste function. All right, so let's save it and look at what we have. Okay, let's get back to the code. And we have our second span. Second span is going to contain the source test.length and then divided. This is not divided, it's more of like or out of or over 2000 characters. And we are going to give it a class name of test small padding right of 4. And this is how it looks like. So let's move ahead and create the second test area and then the icons beneath it to see how this program comes all together. Alright, so I'll copy this test area, basically the same as what we have for the other tests, and then close the div. So we are going to create a test area of an ID, target language, we give it a value of target tests, and an onChange function, which is going to be an empty function for now. Placeholder is going to be target language. So let's go ahead and create this target language. So let's go ahead and create this target test. So to create this target test, we are going to use the hook that we created. So const target test, and the name of the hook is useTranslate. Which is this accept the source test and also the selected language. So we are going to import the hook, import useTranslate from hook.translate. Alright, so let's create the selected language and then try or test the code out. Before we create the selected language, I want us to create a couple of states. So we are going to create a state for copied. So copied, set copied, a use state is going to be a boolean. The copy state is for this particular section. So when we click on this, we have the copied. Yeah, so this state, and we have the constant state for favorites. Sorry, the const for favorite, set favorite equals use state. We have the boolean as well, and then we have a const for languages. which is going to be a use state, a string, and a couple of languages here. We have English, French, Spanish. Let's add German and Chinese. You can add any language of your choice. You can add any language of your choice. So we have these languages, and we are going to create a constant to hold the selected language, and the default language is going to be Spanish. It could be anything of your choice, but I just decided to go with Spanish. All right. So now we have the language issue being sorted out. Let's open the code and see what we have. All right, environmental key missing. Okay, so yarn add .env, and I am going to copy this, make sure the name aligns, and paste it. Paste it over here, and we should be good to go. Okay, there is something going on. Console server root. Okay, let's continue building the application, and I think everything will be sorted out. There is no clear error message, and okay, so let's continue building the application. All right, so we have the test area. Let's move on to create the language selector. So we create a div, a class name of flex row justify between, and a width of full, and we have a span of a class name cursor pointer, which we have items of center, and I think that's basically it. So we have the language selector, which also accepts selected language. We pass in selected language. Accept set selected language. We pass in set selected language as well, and the languages itself for the drop down menu, languages. And we have let's create the icon volume. So we have icon volume, of size 22, and with an on click function of handle the audio playback with the target text. So let's go ahead and import the language selector. We have import language selector from @component, the input and language selector. selected language. All right. So Openai claims there is an empty Openai key. That's why we are facing this particular error. So I'll just go ahead and create a temporal key, so named temp11, which will be deleted right after these tutorials. So move ahead and then import it. So let's check this back and run it, and we have everything working perfectly fine. All right, so let's move back to the page.tsx. All right, so we are done with the volume key. We are going to create a div to hold these icons. Create a div to hold these icons: the copy, the thumbs up, thumb down, and favorites. And we are going to create a class of flex row item center space s2 pr4 and a cursor of pointer. And right away we are going to import all the icons. So icon copy, we have size 22. On click is going to be a function we are yet to create. So on click is going to be handle copy to clipboard. So this function is yet to be created, and we have a state here called copied, which is going to display the text copied anytime we copy a text. So we have copied, the text name, and the class name of text extra small, and the text color is going to be green. 500. And we have icon, thumb up of size 22, and icon thumb down of size 22. And then we create icon star of size 22. On click of handle favorite, which is yet another function we are going to create. And we have a class name. The class name is going to have is going to be dynamic. So if the state has been toggled, or if the user has clicked on favorite, we are going to have the text to be yellow. So text of yellow 500, and anything other than that we are just going to leave the class. All right, so let's save this and create these two functions: handle copy to clipboard, and then the handle favorite function. So right, const handle to clipboard, we use the navigator which is available in JavaScript .clipboard.write, which is going to be our target text, set copy to be true, and the timeout should be the copied should delete, or should be, the copied should be deleted after 2 seconds. So when we click on this copy, after 2 seconds it's supposed to go. Yes, that is what the 2000 milliseconds is doing over here, which is 2 seconds. and we are going to create a function for the favorite. So const handle favorite, and then we just toggle between set favorite and then. So we already have this use state. So set favorite is going to be whatever the opposite of favorite is. So if you have false, it's going to be toggled to true, and if you have true, it's going to be false. Alright, so let's save this and get back to the home page and refresh it. Okay, so we have something similar to this, but not quite yet. So we are going to add the SVG decorators and also the data or the links that we have at the bottom here. So we now scroll down, right after this div, we are going to create or call the SVG component. So SVG decorations, and we have it. And right after this div, we are going to call the category links, which we have over here. This looks close to the edge of the text area, so I would like to give it a little bit padding and also a little bit padding at the bottom here to make everything look, great and gorgeous. So we move ahead to this component, and we are going to add a padding of 3 to both of them. Padding of 3, and there you go, everything looks gorgeous. So this is the production one, and this is what we just created. So let's test this out with anything like how are you doing, and it's been translated into Spanish.
¿Cómo estás?
We can also convert or translate it into German. Hit on the speaker, and that is it. So with just that, we've created our own AI language translation tool from scratch. We can add a lot of features to this application to turn it into a software as a service. We could add a user profile, and users could also pay a little bit of money to increase the number of characters they can type as a source language for the translation. A lot of features can be built upon this to make it a really great application. That being said, this alone is a great application that you can add to your portfolio. Next, we are going to host this application on Vessel, and then you'll be able to share the link with your friends. Let's head right onto vessel.com and host this application. So we have vessel.com. We add a new project. I have already uploaded this code onto GitHub, and if you want to know how to do that, I will place a link in the description, a step-by-step procedure on how to upload your code onto GitHub. Note, this application is going to work only if it is being hosted on GitHub or any other remote repository platform like Gitbucket and the rest. So I'm going to click on import and give it a name of LinguaSpeak and add an environmental variable. So the name of the environmental variable is going to be the next public API key, which is going to store the API key that we created with Openai. This API key will be deleted right after it has been published to YouTube. So using this won't work unless you create your own. Paste it and add it. Now we can click on deploy. And once you click on deployed, it starts running and building. We just have to wait for some few seconds for everything to be completed and you have your deployed code. So this brings us to the end of this tutorials, and if you found this useful, kindly hit on the subscribe button, turn off the notification bell so that you'll be able to see any new video that I upload. Thank you and keep on building great things.